Hello and happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of The Practice. This show is an unrehearsed, unedited look into my digital art workflow. I'm Stuart. I'm a 3D artist, illustrator, animator, and your friend, and I'm excited, just like every week, to get into another episode today. I guess I've been sort of hinting at it over the last several weeks, and before we get started, I want to share some formatting changes that are going to happen as of next week. So, I've been doing a little bit of soul searching and a lot of thinking about how best to continue the practice with some new responsibilities that are coming in, and as the business is growing, and as my day-to-day business obligations start to become more time-consuming, I'm finding it harder to block out solid, uninterrupted chunks of time in the middle of a workday. And I think part of that was part of the appeal, I think, in the early going. I liked having this sort of midday chunk of time to spend with you guys, but I don't think that's going to be sustainable or feasible moving forward. So we're going to be moving to a pre-recorded format. That'll probably result in much shorter videos and much tighter editing, which I think is going to be good overall. I think a lot of the feedback that I've gotten to date is that a lot of times these 2-hour episodes are just like sort of unwatchable for a lot of folks. So I think that tightening some of that up and doing a little bit of time lapse and moving through some of the slower, more tedious stuff might be a good way to sort of skirt that concern. So I do still plan on releasing new videos on Tuesdays. Hopefully Tuesday mornings. I can't promise that it'll be Tuesday every week, but I would like to stick to that schedule. And I guess sort of the last note on that is that the chat interaction, and I mean the real benefit to doing the live show, right, is the chat interaction, and that's always been one of my favorite parts. But unfortunately, it's never really caught on as much as I'd like to have. I would have hoped that there would be pretty consistent chatting going on, and we could be sort of discussing topics as we're modeling and creating things. But I found that, some episodes I hardly get any comments at live, and others, will go an hour or two in between comments. And it doesn't keep that level of banter and chat up to a level that I think, benefits from having a live format. So all of that being said, in terms of formatting, plus the new responsibilities that I'm finding myself involved in, I won't be able to do the live shows anymore, but I will still be doing the practice every week. It'll just be taking on a slightly different format. So, so that was a mouthful. It's taken sort of a lot to come to that, and it's unfortunate in some ways, but I think it's also going to lead to growth in other ways. And I think I think it's foolish to consistently continue doing something just because it's the way you did it before. I think to evolve and update your offering is an important part of growth. So so there you have it. So look forward to digging into this new format and challenging myself, and maybe getting a little better at editing these types of things. And I think the value will still be there for all the routine viewers. So hopefully you'll still be with me on the other side, and I'm really looking forward to digging into that new format next week. So this will be the last 2-hour live format episode of The Practice, at least for now. So anyway, lengthy preamble, blah, 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 all that said, love it when you guys are in the chat. Say what's up, and give me a shout. Hey, Spooky Ghost, thanks for the comment. Appreciate you tuning in. And today, to finally jump into cinema and start talking about the work, is that today we're doing something a little bit different, and we're going to be working on like a spaceship. This is not, like, vehicles aren't something I typically do a lot. I like hard surface modeling. I don't do a ton of it necessarily. I tend to do a lot of characters in sort of organic forms. But this kind of stuff is really fun, and I don't get to do it enough, so that's what we're working on today. Little spaceship. I'm going to start with just sort of a subdivided cube here, kind of get the proportions I need. So let's see here. I'm going to start really simple. Maybe I'm not even going to subdivide this guy so much, because what I want to do is sort of create a wedge shape to begin with. Maybe this will be the spaceship that'll help us fly into our new format. That's pretty cheesy. It could also be that we did, for so many weeks, we did Game of Thrones, ancient castle kind of stuff, that maybe it's time to do something a little more high-tech and fun like that. Who knows? And so, of course, as I always do, start out with just blocking out your basic forms. Blocking out forms, blocking out forms. A good way to start is going to be get some wing shapes going. And we'll start with our cubes. Group that and throw it in a symmetry. Boom. Spaceship. We're done. Get some sort of exhaust thruster kind of deals going back here. This is going to be kind of trying some new stuff here. Don't do a ton of this kind of modeling. So, curious to see how this will all come together. But it's a fun change of pace for sure. Hey Tedzar, yeah, I'm glad it did help. I'm glad you found that that plugin useful. I guess just for everyone listening, this guy Tedzar, who has been following the show a little bit for a while now, I really appreciate you tuning in. Thanks, Tedzar. But he shot me a little email, and I answered his question. I always want to make myself available to chat with you guys. If you have something specific, I know I've said it on past shows, but I'll say it here again. Shoot me a note. I'll try and respond. It might take me a couple days, but that's how it goes. Say what's up. Glad you found it useful. And share with me what you wind up making. I wanna see what happens. And Mr. Ruru, hello. Yes, you're sort of right. Star Wars. Although I'm not going to be mimicking or looking to recreate any specific craft. I'm sure as a bit of a Star Wars fan, I'll be subconsciously taking influence from that wonderful franchise. But yeah, Spaceship Day. Fun times. Ah, glad you liked it, Mr. Roo. Prasad, thank you. Yeah, for sure, Tedzar. It's crazy the difference that having an actual camera output makes over baking those spheres. It's like night and day. It's 10 times faster. Well, I do notice sometimes little issues. I did a really long rendering using that CVVR cam, and I found that there were a couple little issues here and there. I don't know if I can blame them entirely on the camera because I was also using a bunch of what are they called? Pivot objects, which sometimes act a little odd. But yeah, it's a huge improvement to baking the sphere. And actually, I heard that they've announced that Cinema R19 is coming out, and they didn't say to what extent, but they mentioned that there would be improved and updated 360 cameras. I'm not sure exactly what they meant by that, but hopefully that CVVR cam stuff will sort of be baked right into Cinema because that's a useful feature. And a little bit of additional shape to this spaceship wing, making it feel a little better. Maybe even, do we get a thruster under there? I don't know. Let's check it out. Yeah, maybe, maybe. Awesome. Yeah, Spooky Ghost heard the same thing I did, which is a good thing. I'm excited to see that. Although I've already bought this stupid VR CVVR plugin, so will I even need it? Who knows? Maybe it'll have some features that the VR cam won't as a plugin. The overall lines of this thing are looking pretty cool. It's a decent little spaceship. We do need a little cockpit area though, for sure. I'm gonna make a copy of this guy. Turn him off for now. I'm gonna start kind of crafting this cockpit area. Oops. Let's extrude inner. Bevel, or not bevel, let's just drop that down. Do a bit of fixing up here, which is cool. Get that cockpit shape going. Cool. So depending on how we treat the sort of windshield, we can see how complicated in here we want to get. We could probably add some dash stuff and a little seat, even a pilot potentially. I doubt we'll have time for the pilot on today's episode, but see. I probably also want to punch little windows in the side here. So yikes. Maybe it's easier to do it with a bool. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it with a boolie. Just because I have two walls to go through. Let's try this out now. Now I can handle them both with one object, hopefully. All right. Let's use the angle of that bevel as sort of a guide so things kind of line up here. I personally haven't tried Unity. I know a lot of developers prefer that or use that almost entirely. And I've also been in projects where I've turned over 3D assets to Unity developers, which was a good way to work. But personally, no, I don't know any Unity, and I'm not sure if I feel like picking it up, to be perfectly honest. It's very complicated, albeit awesome program, I understand, but no. Personally, nope. So, okay. How's that look? I'm not loving those windows. I'm going to leave them for now, but we'll probably evolve them as we sort of work on this. What we can do is, let's go like this. For now, I'm just going to use a simple alpha channel, give us our window transparency. Be much faster than rendering out true transparency. Let's do that for now. Cool. So yeah, I wonder if I should also, I'm going to remove the areas that aren't window. I mean, technically we could leave them on there for now, but we don't need to. Yeah, and so for the side windows, I think I want them to be inset a bit. This top window, I almost kind of want it to be like a dome, so I think I'm going to sort of elevate it here. That works. Not that edge, though. Cool. There we go. Whoops. All right. All right. It's fairly simple at this point. We got a lot of details we could be adding here, but start. Let's just start. Hmm. Still trying to get this window right. I wonder if maybe we just sort of open the whole side. Maybe. I don't know. It's digital, so we can always change it. That's the beauty, right? That depends on how much time we wind up having. I like the idea of making it move, and what I might even do is just like a simple like 360 rotation GIF of it. Um, or you could even have like you could model some sort of fiery trails coming out of the back of this and just give it sort of a little bit of shake and jiggle, and that would make it look like it's flying around, maybe like that kind of thing. Sound effects always help. So not sure yet. Timing dependent. So I decided it was feeling a bit boxy and I wanted to smooth it out a little bit. So I just really quickly and easily threw it into one of these subdivision surfaces, formerly known as hypernerbs. And I'm actually really loving the effect. You can see I grabbed some of the edges and straightened them out just to get some hard edges in a few places. I'm going to need to update some of the edges on the windshield because it's kind of intersecting in funny ways. But I think overall that gives it a much more high-tech, streamlined look. And I think this smoother, rounded top is going to pair and contrast nicely with some of these harder edge details, which I'm going to leave in. So you got it. But now that it's curved, I gotta alter these little side vents a bit and mess with the windshield a hair. But I'm liking what that did. Looking slick. Oops. right. Getting there. Weird. This file's acting a little bit crazy with the selections, especially with this subdivision surface turned on. There we go. Wasn't letting me adjust this Fong angle at all. Trying to find a nice balance of rounded shapes and a little bit of hard edge to contrast against them. Oops. Super weird. In any case, let's see what that gets us. Hey Binti, yeah, thanks for the tip. A lot of times I will talk through what I'm doing, and sometimes I'll get lost in thought and won't explain as much as I typically would like to. Right now I'm just adjusting the angle of this glass here because it's kind of poking through the body of the spaceship. Just adjusting that position so it's not doing that anymore. And really what I've been just doing for the last, I don't know, half an hour or so is just going through and adjusting some of the angles of the body shape and tweaking little things here and there. I haven't added anything significant in a bit, but I'm just kind of tweaking the shape of the body, pushing and pulling things here and there just to get the overall form feeling right. And we're getting close. I think what I'm going to start doing soon is adding a few little more, a few additional details in there. I think we might start getting to some simple texturing. So. Guy's got some pretty solid thrusters going on right there. And I think, I might want to add a little bit of a detail to the wing. So I'm going to do a loop, I'm going to hit KL, do a loop cut. I'm going to grab this top edge. Just kind of lift it Little wing detail. Because, you know, spaceships. Because spaceships, that's why. Oh, cool. Yeah, thanks, Binty. That's sort of the idea behind this video series. And what I do is I don't view these as like a really like a super typical tutorial. I'm not going to go through step by step and tell you every little thing that I'm doing. What I do is just share my workflow. I give tips and pointers here and there, and if people have specific questions, I can answer stuff for them. But this video also sort of assumes that you've got a basic handle on how Cinema 4D works, and you can just watch and see how one artist, yours truly, works with the program, makes use of the features and the types of things they like to do. So I always think that there are tons of tutorials out there, lots of YouTube accounts and websites dedicated only to tutorials. And that's a crowded market, so I didn't want to take place in that market. I wanted to sort of do my own thing, and that is really just, you know, sharing your workflow, just streaming what you're making. And I talk a lot more about, you know, design principles and things like contrast and composition and texture and unity, things like that that transcend just 3D design and really are about, you know, how you create art. And I hope that a lot of the principles you take away from the show could be applied to your crayon drawings as well as your Cinema 4D workflow, for example. So I try not to get too bogged down in the technology of it all and really think about just making cool shit, yeah? And I'm probably not going to UV map this model. That's a total pain. I'm going to use fairly simple modeling, texturing techniques. What I might actually do, this is a fun one. I'm not sure if all of the noobs to Cinema 4D know this, but there are a ton of amazing presets built right in. You can load them here in your texture tab, or you can go up here to your content browser and you go to presets, and underneath a handful of these folders there's tons of great stuff. So in Visualize there's like a ton of great stuff. So I'm going to go into Car Paint. Some of this stuff might apply here. I might do some quick texture tests. Which reminds me, I should also light this thing real quick. And actually, let's take a look at this. Some of these might take like forever to render too. So we'll have to see what that looks like. I want to start doing some texture tests, and I might use some of these presets to help us along there. So let's add some lights. What I'm going to do is just add like 2 spotlights and some sort of sky map or sky object. And what I think I can do that look really cool is use like a starry HDRI to get some kind of, you know, get some realistic lighting for how a spaceship would be, but then also maybe get a couple little reflections of stars and that sort of thing here and there. First, boom, there we go. I'm going to throw on GI as well. Turn the settings down to low, just so this will render a little quicker. Let's see what that gives us. And since we've got this transparent windshield, I think we're going to have to add a bit of detail to the cockpit to make it look proper. What's going on here? I use OBS to stream my desktop, and I pretty much only use the the native standard or physical renderer inside of Cinema. I don't use Octane or Redshift or anything like that, as of this moment anyway. So let's add that sky object I was talking about. That's under here. Put sky in, and then with the sky, you'll need to add a material. Let's see. I thought I had a star HDRI map. I'm just gonna Google image search one real quick. Space HDRI map 3. So this will work for now. It might not be perfect. And of course, if you're doing commercial work, you need to save your work, or you need to pay for things like this. Of course, you always need to save your work. So what I like to do now is just go ahead and drag my textures directly into a folder called text, because Cinema's going to make one anyway. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the luminance channel. Oop, not reflectance, luminance. Load that image up. Oop. There it is right there. 4K texture, which is great. Apply it to the sky. See what kind of difference it makes. We're also going to get it in the background, and I might wind up actually throwing a compositing tag on here so we don't actually see the stars behind the ship. We just sort of get their lighting quality. Also going to turn the gamma up to 1.4, just so the light travels a little further. Here's that compositing tag. Just going to do scene by camera, just turn that off. Yeah, for sure, Binty. Check out my YouTube channel. All of these the recorded versions of these are all up there, and you can watch and pause and run through them as much as you like. Appreciate you stopping by. Let's see what we got here. And since we're not getting a ton of lighting from a rather dark image, just sort of to be expected, I'm just going to turn the exposure up on this. Oops. The white point down a little bit. Exposure up a little bit, and I guess turn the black point up a hair. Let's get some more contrast on that. All right, now what are we dealing with here? Let's see what we got. Sure, let's stop it. This still is really giving us similar lighting to the last pass. Now we're starting to get a little bit more. I like this low lighting we're getting. I think throwing the gamma a little higher helps. Widening the throw of the spotlights helped a lot too. And getting someplace. Looking pretty cool. Try out some different angles. I wonder if this guy looks cooler from a low angle than he does a high angle. And to be honest, I'm not loving this car paint texture. So let's try some other things out. Let's go to this metal. There's a ton of options in here, right? All these radial grinds and rough stuff. Rusted. Let's see what this old silver looks like. I wonder if a bit of bump and noise will be what we need here. Does look cool. I think it's a bit too much in terms of bump. And the cool thing is we can always, I mean, the presets are there, but we can always go through and change those a bit. So turn down the bump a bit. We'll probably also want to have some variation in the color we wind up using, the textures we wind up using. So. Let's try some different textures here too. Try this guy. Again, I think this might be a super pitted, rusty kind of look, but see how it treats us. We've also got all these cool perforated and different brush textures and things like that. So I think we can come in, even with like this triangular one, might be really cool to add to a couple little details below here. Let's try that. Maybe that triangle stuff's a bit much. Oops. There it applied it to the whole symmetry, which is definitely not what we want. Huh. Grabbed it right the first time. There we go. So yeah, that's far too rusty for what we want to do. I'm going to try this car paint again. Maybe we just wind up adding enough variation into it where the car paint feels right in some instances. Let's see what we got back here. No, I'm going to try this metal grip here. Whoa, shit's blowing up on Twitch right now. Can't even keep up. Marshmallows. Hey, no, marshmallows. What's up, Adam? You sent a bunch of people my way. I appreciate it. This is cool. Notice us. Wow. Look at everybody. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. And thanks for pushing all those viewers over here. I'm assuming that was your doing, Adam. And if so, thank you. Working on a little spaceship here. We're just getting into some texturing now. So rendering out some options and thoughts there. But you can see, here's what we got so far. Been working on it for about an hour and a half. Fairly simple little spaceship exploration here, but liking how it's coming together so far. All right, so this is rendering slow. Gosh, and these textured, it's turning out these textured presets are just entirely too much for what we want to accomplish here. So, I'm losing them. We're going to have to take a more subtle approach in some of those presets, I think. So let's try this. Turn this crazy reflectance way down. So another thing we'll almost definitely want to do is add some kind of thrust reaction here. So I want to add those, and that'll be rather simple, actually. I'm just going to take some of these cylinder shapes, fill in the tube with them. Golly. There we go. And cool. Wow, look at all the support. So I can say emphatically this is the most comments and the largest reaction I've ever gotten from Twitch. And I would all to my man Adam. Thank you, sir. So I'm loving the way these thrusters are looking. Some of these textures are taking a bit long to render, of course. I'm seeing that this new material we made, the bump is a bit too much. I want to smooth that out a good deal. No, it's not for a game. Yeah, it's practice. Yeah. No. The practice is the name for a series that I've been working on for 60 episodes now, where basically I just live stream my creative process. So this isn't meant to be like a strict tutorial where I go through step by step and show you exactly how to make one specific item. And it's not exactly like just a live stream where I don't really talk to anyone. I just draw for a few hours. It's sort of it's meant to break somewhere in the middle. So I'll share some of my tips and tricks as I'm working, but I'm not going to go out into every little thing. And I assume that everyone watching is has a certain level of proficiency in cinema and doesn't need every little keystroke explained to them. Because really, what I want to do is I want to work through in sort of a natural way, show my creative tendencies, and just really share the workflow in its entirety. And I want to spend a lot of time. Like I don't think that folks spend enough time talking about, especially in tutorial settings, talking about things like composition, pacing, contrast, and unity, and core design principles that help you create awesome images, whether it's with crayons and a scrap of loose leaf paper, or with high-end 3D software. So it's interesting how much more, or I guess it's cool how much of a difference you get in looking at this thing from one angle versus the other. One is just far more interesting. I think a lot of that has to do with these cool orange glows that we're getting. I wonder if it's also because there's a bit more detail on the bottom, and the top just is kind of It's a bit, it's kind of smooth and flat. So we need to add more variation there. I also think we could do with a bit of color, so maybe there's like a stripe on the wings or something cool like that. Let's see. I also think I want to add some reflectance to this glass because it would have some. Now I'm just knocking out test renderings from a range of angles, really looking at the form, seeing what we're dealing with here. Yeah, I was thinking about whether or not to do like actual like cone-shaped thrust trails. Although that might give us the advantage of making this great orange color visible from further away, or from more angles, I should say. So actually, let's try that. Let's do this. Let's go cone. Add a little cone. You do this a lot of ways. You could do this with splines. In fact, if I was going to do motion graphics, I would build these out of splines, so that way you could angle them or animate across them, and you have a little bit more flexibility. But since this is only a 2-hour show, and since we're about an hour and a half of the way through that, I just want to show you a fairly simple way. And I think maybe our final output might be like a turntable GIF. Now if I round the top and bottom, add a little bit of space, you start getting that like thruster kind of look. Which looks pretty cool. And I think what I want to do is make a slightly more transparent version of this. Unfortunately, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to use alpha instead of transparency, because that's going to go a lot quicker. So a simple alpha to this, bring down the transparency quite a bit. Cool. Should probably add these to all the little boosters. Want to make it smaller, I think. It's a lot of boost. There's a lot of transparency to render. Let's see what that gets us. We're going to give us a more dynamic side angle. I'd almost guarantee it. Let's take a look at the test rendering we knocked out. It's cool. Turning down the specularity a little bit on this reflection. Those highlights are just a bit too harsh for my taste, so I'm going to drop some of that stuff. Yeah, that wasn't too bad, right? Like, so I'm only rendering at 1280 by 720, but I try to keep my models fairly simple, and I don't use a fancy, complex rendering engine, which you know sometimes those actually make your rendering a little faster. This rendering is slowed down a bit just because I'm streaming as well, so a lot of my computational power is tied up in streaming that stuff, so it's not quite as quick as it would normally be. But yeah, most of these renderings go in about a minute, about in a couple minutes, depending on which angle we're looking at too here. But I think with these boosters, our render time is going to be a little higher because we've added some transparency and stuff like that. But I'm liking the glow and the sort of mood that these are adding to the piece. It's pretty cool. And while that's rendering, I think I might hop in and add a little bit more detail. I'll grab this wing. There we go. Back edge of the wing, kind of bevel that a little bit. So I kind of feel like there should be some like wires or cables or something like that. So I'm gonna really simple, just kind of draw in some wiry bits. We go to the side view. I'm just gonna kind of draw them in. I'm gonna have to go back and tweak them later, obviously, but maybe there's some stuff coming out of here. Whoops, wrong tool. There's some stuff kind of, actually, you know what? That was the right tool. I'm gonna use this one instead. I'll do some chamfering later if I need to. Oops. Just creating a little sweep here. Oh gosh, you know what? I'm wondering if there's an even easier way. There might be to create this spline. Because I was going to go through and move that spline by hand, but you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to kind of create a cheat workaround. And this is how it goes. So I'm going to expand that guy. Select this cube. Which one is he? There he is. I'm going to select the vertices that I want to create a spline from, because there's a pretty awesome edge to spline command. And instead of altering that spline to fit this geometry, I'm just going to use this geometry to create the spline, right? So you go to, where is it? Mesh, commands, edge to spline. And then you'll see that underneath this cube in the hierarchy, you get the spline, which will match that angle exactly. So now I can take that spline and throw it in the sweep as opposed to this other spline, which I'm going to take out. I'll turn it back on. You'll see that that is following exactly the angle I wanted it to take. Now it's a little bit harsh, so what I want to do is go, I don't want a linear, I want cubic, and I want natural. Do I want, no, let's see, Bezier. Linear, maybe subdivided. We can mess with some of these and get probably a fairly accurate. Oh. Alrighty. That's better. It's not great yet, though. I want to keep working with that. That might be good enough. And now I just have to make a couple little tweaks instead of building that whole thing from scratch, right? I think part of the reason this is so messy actually is because there's so many points in the spline. Typically, the fewer points. This goes for Bezier stuff and like programs like Illustrator as well. Typically, the fewer points on the spline you have, the smoother it's going to be. It still even gets us closer to than the first method I was thinking about. So and that makes me think we should turn this over to Bezier. I'll have a little bit more control. There we go. I can just sort of tweak some of these parameters. Oops. Nice. Okay. So there's a detail. I think I want to have that be a symmetrical detail, so I'm going to throw that into the symmetry object that we've got going. Boom. I don't think I want that to be so metallic. Let's come up with another sort of texture for these tubes. I want them to be a little more matte. It's going to give us some contrast and look nice. So not perfect. Acceptable. All right, let's see what that gets us. And actually, we haven't even looked at how the thrusters are working. They're pretty good, but I feel like they should be a little bit more transparent. Did I put the appropriate? Yeah, it looks like they've got some transparency on them. Let's try this. I know that luminance can sometimes counteract transparency. What's going on? Go. Thanks, Adam. Enjoy your tea, man. The Game of Thrones style pieces are pretty much done, I think. I did a couple like that. I did, most notably, like a 3-part series on this show about modeling and then doing a digital overpainting on Dragonstone, which is the Daenerys Targaryen family castle. Um, Man, I love that show. It's getting so good, too. So what's happening here is through the transparency, we're actually starting to see some of the HDRI shadow map. Probably, probably turn off scene by transparency. But I do want them to be seen by reflection. Although you're not really, I guess because the blur is so high on this, you're not really seeing the reflection of the stars. But they're there. Now we're almost running out of time here. But what I might do, if I had unlimited time, is actually take in the alpha channel. Actually, let's see if we can do it. Whatever, we can go a little bit long here. So alpha, let's turn this into a gradient, right? Oops, alpha, let's say gradient. And that way I think we'll be able to go totally opaque from one side to the other. Now I'm going to leave that gradient totally on. We'll see, yeah, you can see the way that's being mapped around these cones is cylindrically. There's 2 ways to get around that. Let's see if we just alter the angle of this. There we go. Perfect. Now what we want to do is, it hardly took any time at all. We'll have lighter colors on the left and darker on the right. And that'll be our move from one level of opacity to the other. Now it should get significantly more transparent the closer to the tip we get. So cool. Cool. All right, let's see what that gets us. Well, so I think our transparency setting in the compositing tag worked because I'm not seeing the star textures in here anymore. Although that may be to come because this is still in front of the ship itself and not the background. Although no, okay, I think we're safe now. Not getting as much of that disappearing act along the length of this as I would like. So I'm going to go darker towards the tip. I'm going to go a little darker here too. trying to figure out what the money angle is too. Let's do a bunch of renderings. I think what I'll do as well, although I won't show the entire rendering process, I'll show you how I like to do turntable GIF animations. So, I'll make a circular spline, set it around the object I want to do the turntable on, and I've got my camera angle, so I'll add a camera here too. If we hit H from the side views, you can see the whole scene, right? So here's my camera down there. I'm going to grab my circle spline, drop it approximately to the position of the camera, although that doesn't matter entirely. I like to get it pretty close. I'm also going to expand it. You can see from the top, I'm going to expand it till it about intersects the lens of the camera. And I'm going to make the camera a child of the circle. What you can do is you can set the length. I'm going to say this is let's say a 22 frame. So let's see here. I got this cheat sheet. From 16 to 32. So things that are in the power of 2 are faster to compute. Should we do 16 or 32 frames? Let's do 32. Got time. So boom. Okay, so we go to our first frame, take the circle, keyframe it, go to our last frame, rotate the circle 360 degrees. And keyframe it again. You can see that moves our guy around. Now, what's wrong with it? It like stops and starts really fast. We don't want that. So I'm going to go into the timeline and select all. I'm going to turn these into linear key properties. Just zero them out. You'll see what you get. Now we should get a much smoother, more even rotation. Now that's really fast. I can turn the frame rate down when we finish rendering out these frames. And then we can control the speed at which we're rotating around. Now the other thing we're noticing is that this object isn't perfectly centered. So when we get to some parts of the rotation, things pop way out of center. We'll try and fix that up a little bit by just nudging this ship a little bit backwards. Let's see here. Not working very well. Which is weird because let's just zero this out. So our circular spline is centered pretty evenly. Now I guess what we want to do is we want to take this ship, just kind of center it in the spline. Man. This is terrible. My typical technique is not working at all. All right, I'm going to start it over again. Delete that. I'm not going to do it from such a weird angle. So what I'm going to do is I am trying to figure out why the rotation is off center. It's because I've got a really long, wide, like, so this object is short and it's a lot longer than it is tall or wide. That's giving us a weird effect, especially at that angle. So I'm just going to start that over again and see if I can find a more forgiving angle. So I'm going to take the camera, I'm going to go inside it, I'm going to zero it out perfectly. Right? And then I'm going to add circular spline again. Rotate that 90 degrees. So now if I were to keep this at this angle, the camera that is, at this angle, we'd get a fairly even rotation. I think when we go to that low angle, things start acting a little weird. So this should give us fairly even. So it goes out far to the left there because of how everything's centered, I think. Let's try this. There we go. So now I got a pretty even rotation, right? Things are staying fairly centered. Now what I think I need to do is just drop this whole thing down. Point that camera up a little bit. I see since the camera was angled in 2 axes, I think is why we were getting that weirdness. Oh, is that too bad? C4D does have a target camera mode. I don't like it at all. This typically works much better, and I think I've figured out why I was slightly off angle in some of those instances. And that's because the camera was angled on 2 axes. So as it's spinning around, it's like pushing a strange angle onto this. But let's try this. I'll show you how this will work a little better now. And if we want to get that specific angle on the spaceship, we'll have to accomplish that by letting one of the frames in the rotational pieces have that angle. Let's see if I can explain that. So let's try it again. Okay, so keyframe, we'll go to 32. We'll rotate this 360 degrees. Keyframe it again. And like we did before, select all and go to linear. Oops. Zero that out. Great. So now that's going to be the angle that we wanted. We can't start on that angle. We have to start a little bit lower. Also wanted, oops. Well, I'm going to delete these keyframes because I realize I want to drop this down a little bit further. Angle the camera up a little bit higher. Okay. All right, one more time. And we're now just at about the 2-hour mark. Cool. So there we have it. Now we can render that out and recompile the frames as a GIF in Photoshop a little later. But let's do a nice rendering at this angle as a final sort of farewell as we're closing out the thing. Yeah, so there's that last angle we were trying to achieve, and this second rendering will be that angle, but with the camera applied to this circular spline, so we can do a full 360 full 360 turntable animation of this guy. Yep, Nympheus knows. Thanks, though. Appreciate it. Sorry I missed one of your comments there. Yeah, this chat client isn't perfect for sure. You see, that's fairly darn close. Yeah, it's essentially the same angle. We can see that the trails on here are looking a lot better when we have that gradient from fully or mostly opaque to hardly opaque at all. So now I'm just going to set this up to render all of these frames out. And we'll sort of close it down. The retouching on this is going to be fairly minimal, just bumping up some contrast and value, and I'll spare you that since we're going slightly over at this point. So I want to do output all frames, right? I'm not sure about the aspect ratio. I'm wondering, now this is fairly wide format, so we should keep it a wide format aspect ratio. 1280 by 720 is fine for now. I'm not going to go full HD on a 32 frame GIF. That'll get enormous. Let's save these as pings. Practice. Cool. And there it is. Little spaceship exploration for the day. Cool. I'm gonna hit render. We're off to the races. Thanks. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, I mean, I think for a 2-hour exercise, I think we got a fair amount accomplished. And that's sort of the idea behind the practice is, you know, most of the time these aren't going to be super high polished finished pieces, but it's about consistently putting forward good efforts, developing positive creative habits, and, you know, having fun while pushing your skill set further. So that's the whole idea here. I don't expect that this is going to be like a finished client piece, right? But this is just this is a good exploration, it's good practice. So that being said, it's been a ton of fun. Thanks for stopping by. If you appreciated what you saw, hit like, hit subscribe, share it with a pal. If you want to keep up with my work and what I'm doing elsewhere, follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active socially. That's DLGNCE on Instagram. And normally at this point, I'd say see you next week at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. But as discussed in the beginning of the show, we're going to have a slightly different format next week. And I'm going to still shoot to upload everything on Tuesdays, so that's still going to be our, you know, practice day, so to speak. But I think unfortunately we're going to have more pre-recorded, pre-canned stuff, just because my schedule's been so crazy lately. And you know, it comes from a good thing. I think work's picking up. We're getting sticky. We're pushing the look forward, and we're gaining traction and having more and more followers showing up and being interested in the work, and more clients coming along as a result of that. So we're pushing things in the right direction, and we're making a lot of progress, but we're going to have a slightly different approach to the practice next week. So thanks for tuning in to the stream. I really appreciate it, you guys. Huge bump on Twitch for the first time today, which has been super nice. So thanks, Adam. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. This is Stuart saying goodbye. Thanks, y'all.